Morning everyone, thanks for coming back to the channel. I'm doing the service this morning and I've got a few bits to do. I'm going to be doing the oil and filter, the air filter, the spark plugs, changing them, and the spark plug caps as well. And I'm going to change the screws on the front brake master cylinder cover because the old ones are a bit mashed. So yeah, let's see how we get on. So yeah, first job's going to be the oil. I got some Castrol. This is the one I usually use, the Power 14T. I like this stuff and the bike seems to like it too. Got it on offer from Halfords for 28 quid. It's about between 32 and 35 online, so that was quite a good price. Oil and filter, so it'll take 3 litres. I've got a little bit left from last year, so I'll use that first and then break into that one. So yeah, oil and filter. I'll get the engine warmed up in a minute, get the oil warmed up to drop. While that's warming up, I'm going to do the screws in the master cylinder cover. Fluid's good, that doesn't need changing, so I'll make sure I don't break the seal when I'm doing it. Don't want to get any air in there. What else? Oh yeah, air filter. That's easy enough. That's just underneath this cover, and then I'll probably take the I'll have to take the tank off to get the spark plugs out. Actually, while we're around this side, on these bikes they use a vacuum petcock. So the way to take the tank off, just make sure your petcock is on reserve or on. Don't have it on prime. And then you just take off the feed pipe to the carbs and the vacuum hose. So it's that one, that's the fuel out to the carburetors, and this one here is the vacuum hose, so that comes off, and then the whole thing lifts away with the tank, but it goes between the frame and the carbs, so it's quite tight, so just watch out when you're lifting it. Of course you have to disconnect the breather pipe underneath and the fuel sender for the fuel gauge, but you know, I'll get into all that when I do the job in a bit. I think I've got everything ready, got all the tools, got the most important tool of all, cup of coffee. So yeah, let's get into it. So first thing to do is get the bike warming up to drop the oil. Right, while the bike's warming up, I'm just going to do those screws on the master cylinder. I won't film that up close because it's literally unscrewing them and putting the new ones in. Okay, so first herd of the day, they are proper soft. I've given them a good old soak with WD-40. This one was already rounded off and I've begun to round this one off. So whoever changed this brake fluid, and it looked like new fluid, so it must have been done last year before the bike came into my ownership. But whoever changed this put the old screws back in, so it's a good idea to change them if you've ever got them out. But anyway, I'll let the WD soak while I do everything else, and then I'll have another go at them. Might need to get a little bit of gentle impact behind it. But obviously this is the master cylinder for the brakes, so I can't do anything too dramatic. So yeah, we'll cross that bridge in a minute. So that's a 17mm socket. If you can get to it without an extension, do that, because you've got less chance of rounding the head off. When you change the oil, you should be really replacing that sump plug, because it's only about a £5 to get a decent magnetic run with a washer. But yeah, see if you can get past the pipes without an extension. And obviously remember, the oil is going to be really hot, so be careful. See if I can bang my head on that one more time. Just have a look at that oil colour. Yeah, so there you go. That's dropping quite nicely. So it's a decent viscosity, so there's nothing mixed in with it. Reasonable colour. I mean, that's what would that be? Probably about 4,000 miles, I suppose. Maybe 4.5. But there's, you know, no obvious signs of fibre in with it, or, you know, metal. If you've got fibre in there, then it's your clutch. It's a sign that your clutch is struggling. And obviously, if there's metal in there, then that's a sign of something a bit more nasty going on in the engine. And you want to be looking for, you know, fluid mixed in. So you don't obviously have any petrol mixed in there with it. Because, you know, if petrol's getting into your oil, then it's a sign that you've got issues with the you know, the petcock or your floats on the floats on the carb. And obviously you don't want water in there either. You don't want water getting in from outside, or, you know, coolant mixing in, anything like that. So you're looking at the oil as it's coming out and just checking that you're happy. I say it's about 3 litres sump and filter. So while that's draining, I'll just take that old filter off. So talking about the filter, there she is in a right old state. I finally got around to getting a proper filter tool to remove that, because in the past what I've always done is punctured it with a screwdriver and turned it that way, which isn't ideal. So yeah, I think that was about 10, maybe 12 quid from World End Motorcycles. Pretty much everything that I'm using today, the you know, service parts are from World's End. They're good, nice fast delivery, good quality stuff, and you know you're getting what it says it is as well, with plugs and that. So anyway, let's get that oil filter off. So simple enough, just take your old filter off, stick your new one on, and when you put your new one on, just put a bit of clean oil around the you know, around the gasket on the new filter. Some people put some oil in the new filter before they put it on. I don't tend to do that on a bike, because I want to be sure that I'm putting in the correct amount. I don't want to overfill it, basically. Right, that's it. Clean off all the old oil as best you can, so you know the new stuff isn't leaking out. Then you're looking at 3 litres. So I wouldn't put all of that in straight away. I've put most of it in, but I want to run the bike for a bit, let it circulate, because obviously it's possible that all the old oil didn't drain out. You don't want to overfill it. So I've just warmed the bike up after putting the fresh oil in to circulate it, let it cool down for a few minutes and then check the level. You know, the oil change is so important. If you don't do anything else on your bike, please change your oil and filter. You know, check your book, but probably every sort of, depends on the bike, but this one I do every kind of 4,000 or 5,000 miles. But obviously the more often you change your oil, the longer your engine's going to last, because the oil takes away rubbish, it keeps everything alive. It's so important, it's the lifeblood of the engine. So yeah, let's have a look at that level. You can't really see it very well on the glass, but it's there. Normally I leave it sort of half an hour to an hour when I'm doing a normal sort of oil check after the bike's run. You know, run it up to temperature, then leave it half an hour to an hour. I think we'll start on the, we'll have the tank off and then check the level again. I'll probably put the rest of that 3 litres in, because there isn't much left in there. It's just, you never know if there's any of the old oil left, you know, you don't want to overfill it. But yeah, let's get the camera back on the tripod and we'll have a look at taking the tank off. So it's just the one bolt here. Unhook the vacuum petcock, and then the drain hose and the gauge underneath, but we'll get it on the tripod and have a look. Yeah, while we're talking about fuel, actually, one of the common faults on these ER5s is that the vacuum petcock can fail. You know, a note on fuel: don't ever put E10 in these bikes. I mean, you know, even if your manufacturer says that your newer bike will take E10, you shouldn't really put E10 in a motorbike. You know, you need to be putting the premium stuff in. You'll get better performance. You know, the carbs and the jets. You know, the injectors will thank you for it. So yeah, only ever put E5 in your ER5, because otherwise you're going to rot out the fuel lines, you're going to destroy the diaphragms in the carbs, and you're going to wreck the fuel tap, the vacuum petcock, and that's a whole world of problems. But one of the common faults with these bikes is that the vacuum petcock tap can fail, and if that's in combination with your floats on your carbs jamming up, then the fuel can overflow and get into the air filter, get into the engine, get into the oil, and you know, you don't want that. So I haven't had a problem, touch wood, with the fuel tap on this bike, the vacuum tap, but what I've done, I've put a stop tap in, an on-off tap between the vacuum petcock and the carb, just as a belt and braces really. So, you know, because if those things fail, it can flood and overflow even if the bike's just sat. So yeah, I just turn that off when I'm not using the bike, obviously turn it on when I want to run the bike. So yeah, anyway, let's get the camera set up around the other side. Before we go on the tripod, I'll just get a close-up of the vacuum tap. So yeah, like I said before, all your disconnecting from the tap is obviously taking it off the frame, these two bolts here. You can see I've had to replace one of these. With any old bike, just go gently. You know, you're going to thread things, you're going to take the heads off bolts and that kind of thing, and that had already happened on this one, so I've replaced that previously. But disconnect the tap from the frame, and then you want to take the fuel outline off that goes to the carb, or in my case the one that goes to the extra on-off tap. Disconnect that, disconnect your vacuum hose, and then once the tank is unbolted and you've taken the the breather pipe off, I'll show that in a minute, and you disconnected the fuel sender wires. Once you've done all that, you can gently lift the tank away. Just be careful, because obviously the tap's got to pass between the carbs and the frame, and it's quite tight, so do that gently. But yeah, let's get the tank off. Obviously it's going to be easier if you've got less fuel in there. You don't need to drain it to do that, because as long as your tap is in the reserve or on position, that'll stop the fuel flowing. Because the carbs aren't cooling for fuel while the bike's running. The bike's not running, there's no vacuum, so the carbs aren't cooling for fuel. So yeah, the less fuel you've got in your tank, the easier it's going to be to lift. But yeah, let's get you on the tripod. So, any old bolts or threaded things that you're putting back in, put a bit of copper ease on them. Don't go mad with it, because it'll attract dirt if it's exposed, but just put a little bit on the threads before you put them back in. Makes them easier to come out next time. Yeah, copper ease. While we're on the left side, before I forget, I'm going to do the air filter. Actually, that doesn't look too bad. It looks like it's been replaced at some point. I'll say it's not too bad. Quite a difference in colour, but while you've got your old filter out, just have a check in there. Make sure there's no oil getting through, or fuel, anything that shouldn't be in there, water build up, anything like that. Yeah, that's not too bad. These foam bits are different. I wonder which way in they go. I'll have a little play and see which way it fits.
The Death Sword and its sword.
Okay, let's get back to getting this tank off. Just a note on the fuel lines: when you're changing fuel lines, don't tug on the line with your hand. Gently prise it off with a flat head, because if you're tugging on it, chances are it's going to tighten up anyway, and it's going to make it harder to get off. And with these fuel taps, it is actually possible, certainly with the fuel out on the tap there, to take out the little T-piece, the little L-piece that fits into the tap itself if you tug too hard. So just gently prise that off with a screwdriver. Obviously undo your clips first, and And while you've got the tank off, check the condition of the hoses, but we'll get into that in a minute. Okay, change of plan. I cannot get that exit hose off, and I don't want to yank it too hard because, like I said, this L piece here that goes between the pipe, the fuel pipe, and the tap is loose. It's not loose, but I can tell that if I yank this too hard, that's going to pop out. Which is what it did before when I was putting that other tap on. There's I think if I remember rightly, there's an O-ring seal in there, or you know, a rubber seal on that piece. I don't really want to mess with that, so I'm going to leave the tap free, and I'm going to do it by, you know, moving the tank slightly. I think I've got under half a tank of fuel, so I should be able to do it that way. I mean, I could do a bit more fiddling and pushing with the screwdriver and prying on this, but I don't want to damage the pipe or the tap itself. So I'm going to do it the other way for now. Okay, so it's not an ideal way of doing this because you really don't want to drop your tank, obviously, but there should be enough play in the you know, the sender hoses, the fuel hoses, to give you a bit of room to twist the tank. Okay, this side's done. I didn't film it because I had to hold the tank while I was doing it, and because of the way the coolant hoses are routed, it is an absolute pig to get to that plug. You've literally got to put a long extension bar down through the hoses, and actually it pushed one of the hoses far enough for it to dribble out a little bit of fluid. So I'm hoping, one, that didn't get into the chamber, and two, I'm also hoping that that hasn't introduced some air into the coolant system, but that's all good fun. So, you know, that one is really virtually impossible to do by hand, you know, unless you've drained the coolant and taken those coolant hoses off. So I had to do it really gently with the extension and the you know, the ratchet. So, oh god, I hope I haven't cross-threaded it. It felt like it was going in okay, and it torqued up all right. So fingers crossed. That you know, that's the one thing I hate about this bike, getting to the plugs. The one on the other side is a little bit easier, but this side is an absolute pig. While you're here, just check you know, your travel of your throttle cable and everything. Oh, clutch, not clutch, choke cable. The previous owner on this bike has changed it to a single throttle cable. There's no return cable, you know, which is fine, it works, but obviously if that breaks and the throttle sticks open, you're in a bit of trouble. As far as I know, that's MOTable, it's legal. It's just you've got to be aware of that's the system you've got. I'm sure someone who knows more than me will put me right in the comments, but yeah, just check the play of your cables. This one returns okay. There's a tiniest amount of movement at the end. Without the tank off, it's that. It looks easy. It's that nut there on the adjuster, but I just can't get to it with holding the tank and doing everything else. So I'm not going to fiddle with that. You know, the throttle itself returns fine, and that state hasn't changed since the last MOT. So hopefully they'll be happy with that. I mean, it's not a tremendous amount. So it returns, and then there's the tiniest amount of movement which I could take up as slack, but if I can ever get the tank off, I'll do that then. Okay, so I'll just take you off camera while I seat the tank to do the other side. Okay, so here's the other side. So it's doable this way, you know, moving the tank, but you've got to be so careful because you're putting so much pressure on the hoses. You've got to be careful you're not resting it on something that doesn't want to be rested on, like some of that cooling system, for example. And of course it could easily get knocked and go flying off. So when you're doing it on your own, this is a bit of a tricky way to do it, but it will do, yeah. Okay, so the other side is a bit easier to get to. Pop that off. Same drill as the other side, but I'll film it this time. I'm going to take the old cap off. If there's enough play, I'll trim a little bit off the HT lead before I thread the new cap on. There wasn't enough play on the other side, but it looked okay and it's getting good spark. And then I'll clean up as best I can in the chamber, which is not going to be easy. And then pop the old plug out and we'll go from there. So let's get you on the tripod. Okay, so hopefully you can see what's going on there. Pop the old cap off. They're just threaded. It's I don't know if you can see that. There's literally just a thread inside the cap that screws into the lead, the HT lead. I mean, these caps aren't too bad. The contacts are still good, but they weren't matching, and I wanted to be sure they were the correct caps for the plugs. And the other side was a little bit loose anyway, so I just wanted to get the proper cap on for that plug. These are Iridium NGKs that I'm putting in. I got them from World's End Motorcycles, so I know they're what they say they are. There's a lot of dodgy Chinese copies kicking around at the moment, but let's get this new cap on. So the caps will always come with the bungs, so just, you know, don't reuse the old ones, put the new ones on, get a good seal, slide that onto your HT lead first. Again, that's a bit short. I can't really trim anything off that, but it looks pretty good. It's not crushed on the end or anything like that, so I'm just going to stick the new plug onto that cable. And then you'll feel a bit of resistance. It'll turn forever if you let it, but you'll feel a little bit of resistance when it's on. Put the new cover on. Make sure the seal's good. Of course, because I was on camera, it had to be twisted, didn't it? But that's on now. Right, then get your plug spanner down into the cavity. Make sure you're using a thin wall spanner, 18mm for this bike. This one's got the rubber in it to grip the plug, which helps a bit. And then wind it out by hand, so much easier on this side to get to. So that plug's not too bad. You know, the electrode's in good condition. That's from the cavity, that bit of rubbish that's there. Colour's fairly good. In fact, if you're using a Haynes manual, there's a handy chart in the back. I mean, you could probably get it off, you know, online anyway. And you can compare your plug colours. So, you know, it's not blistered. There's no damage to the electrode. It's not oil fouled, or there's no deposits on it. You know, it's got this nice sort of brownish grey colour to it. So yeah, happy with that. Hard to tell how old that plug is really. I think the condition of the electrode is good, but the plug looks pretty wasted, so I wouldn't bother trying to clean that up. I'd replace it with a new one. In fact, I'd always do that anyway. Already checked the gaps on these new plugs. They're good to go. So again, make sure you're winding it in by hand. One way you can do it, if you've got a piece of fuel pipe kicking about, is to use a bit of fuel pipe on the end and wind that in by hand, because if it hits any resistance it'll stop turning, and it's a really good way to be sure you're not cross-threading it, because obviously it's so soft, that casing, you do not want to cross-thread that. I don't have any of that at the moment, so I'm going to do it this way, but I'll be gentle. Come around this side so it's not going in at an angle. Then torque setting on these is 14 Newton meters, so I'll make sure that's right and finish it off. Definitely don't want to over tighten them. Okay, so that's all good. Cavity's as clean as I can get it. Pop that on till it clicks. Give it a little bit of WD-40 to keep the water out. Don't go mad with that though. Okay, so that's both sides done on the plugs. I've checked the cables and everything underneath. I'm going to get the tank back on, get it all bolted up, make sure there's no fuel lines pinched out, get the fuel tap tightened back up, make sure everything's reconnected, and then we'll fire her up and see what happens. Okay, let's see if she fires up and run her up to temperature and check around for leaks. Right, if I take you off the tripod, we can have a little look around. Okay, so sounds good. Obviously it's on choke, so she's running a bit high, but both sides feel like the same temperature, so that's a good sign. Don't worry about that, that's a bit of WD-40 from where I was a bit mad with it. So no leaks on the fuel tap, which is what I was worried about, which is good. Bit of WD on there, but that's nothing to worry about. A bit of oil burning off, again, don't worry about that. So no leaks from the filter. Drop the choke off a bit. So choke off, and she sounds like she's running as she should. No leaks from the sump plug, which is good. So when you're putting your tank back on, just check the condition of the rubbers that the tank sits on. Make sure you push it all the way on, it's sat okay. Remember to put the collar back on this one before you thread it in. Check that nothing's pinched out underneath. But yeah, I think we're good to go. So thanks for watching, and I hope you like the new branding on the channel. I'm working through some artwork changes to sort of tie in better with the kind of art and music that I'm doing. I want to tie it all in together. But yeah, hope you enjoyed watching, and catch you soon.